So it's my pleasure to introduce Micallef, who has over 20 years of experience in community corrections. She completed her Bachelor of Arts Welfare Studies degree and has undertaken further postgraduate studies in corrections. She's currently Director Community Corrections Sydney West and responsible for 5 Metropolitan Community Corrections locations and the extended supervision orders statewide. Since joining corrections, Michelle has worked constantly in frontline community offender management, commencing as a probation and parole officer, progressing to the manager of an offender residential centre and manager of numerous community corrections locations. In 2014, and it was my great honour because I was the President of New South Wales, Michelle was awarded Probation and Parole Officer Association of New South Wales Life Membership as an acknowledgement for her work within the association over the years and her services to New South Wales Community Corrections. Michelle.
There you go. Okay. Thank you. Stuart contacted me a little while ago to do this wrap-up session, and I think it's a really important one for us to take a moment and look at, and it's about ourselves. And I think as practitioners, we don't really spend enough time actually thinking about ourselves and our survival in this industry. So, you know, just reflecting on the last few days, but also thinking about the work that we do every day and what we see and what we hear and what we read, the situations we walk into and how we manage ourselves, and to keep that love, joy and optimism in what we do in an ongoing basis. To do that and to do that well, I think we really need to take a moment about our own self-care. So I really would like you to have a think as I go through this. Do you actually have a self-care plan? As a practitioner in the field, doing the work that we do every day, what do you do for yourself as a self-care plan? And even more so if you're a leader in our industry and you're managing staff, what time do you take to make sure that your team and those that you supervise and that those that you have carriage of to get home safely each day, how much time do you give talking about their self-care and how they take care of themselves so that they can stay highly productive members of our industry and keep contributing to the work that we do? So I'm no expert in this field. I'm just a general practitioner who's joined the ranks of community corrections, worked my way up through. And my story today you're going to hear is actually my story and my self-care plan. So I joined the department, Community Corrections, Probation and Parole, on the 16th of January 1995. And Kathy, who happens to be sitting right here in front, was in my class. And we were an experiment for probation and parole in that time, because prior to our commencement, there was a 25-year, you had to be 25 years or older to join the organisation. So I was a 21-year-old, straight from uni, first job, and I became a probation and parole officer. I did my 3 months of training, and I was placed at Mount Druitt Community Corrections, and I walked in for my first day to realise that there was a 16-year age gap between me and the next staff member in the office. For me, that actually was fine, and I had the joy and really positive experience of having wonderful role models around me who nurtured me, who helped me understand the role and the challenges, pulled me up when I was doing things that I didn't realise were grooming, were making sure that I stayed on track in terms of what the core business was. And I thought that was my self-care, to have these people around me and to be led and enriched through their experiences and guided. Then one fateful day, I got involved in a critical incident. So I was 16 months in the job. I went out in the field to do home visits, something that community corrections officers do every single day. At that time, we had no mobile phones. We didn't leave a run sheet of where we were going. We just had a field day, and we would go out in the field alone and go around our community and see our offenders in their homes. This particular day, I went to see 2 offenders because they were in a relationship together. The The male was a DV perpetrator, and the female was a shoplift, a person on a bond. I walked up to the door as I had done numerous times before, and I thought, geez, it's a bit quiet today. They have 5 children, so I thought, mum mustn't be home, or maybe they're not home at all. I knocked on the door. The offender, the male offender, I'll just call him John, answered the door, and he was a bit agitated, but he opened the door, stepped back, welcomed me into the home. It was then that I smelt petrol, and went, oh God, this is not great. Then I saw the children who were under the table in the kitchen, hiding, and then I realised that my other client, the female offender, was actually bound in the room. It was a horrible experience, and one that really defined me as an officer. It really shaped my knowledge of understanding of the risks that we walk into every single day. I will not go into all of the details of that experience, other than to say that obviously I'm here. Several hours later, we all made it out of that home. My colleagues who were back at the office when they realised I hadn't come back because people started to leave and my car was still there, didn't know where to start to look. I had however many offenders, 40 or 50 offenders on my caseload, and nowhere to start to find me, basically. But the police called my manager, who came down to the police station and sat with me through all of the statements and those processes. And that situation happened. It's the after of that situation that I want to focus on, and that is the next day in the office when I went back to work and my colleagues sat me down and we did a formal debrief. So as you would be aware, now we have EAPS, we have a whole lot of services out there. For me, my first experience of a debrief was an amazing experience. It was my colleagues working through the situation that I had been through the previous day, and us really helping me to deal with what I experienced and to put it in a place so that I could move forward. For me, in self-care plans, debriefs are something that I think are really important. And throughout my career, it's something that I've utilised over and over again. So currently, for me, I use EAPS to assist me in that. So it's no longer my colleagues who help me with debriefs, but there is EAPS. In New South Wales, we have an EAPS managers program. So when I go through really tough days where I'm dealing with something that affects me personally and I'm going home and I'm not able to shut that door or block that out, or I need to actually work that through, I call the EAPS managers hotline and I ask for a professional debrief. It's what I actually ask for. They give me a time and a number, and I get a call back, and we go through a professional session of a debrief around whatever the situation is that I need to. And I think we all need to take a moment and reflect on our careers where possibly a debrief would have helped us. So whilst my experience in the first occasion was a horrific experience, it gave me probably one of the greatest gifts that I could get in terms of being able to survive 21 years in the industry. And that is the knowledge that in the toughest of circumstances, you can actually be okay if you acknowledge how you're feeling, you seek the support that you need to actually look at and unpack what you've experienced and to deal with that, and then to be able to step forward and feel that that situation is in a place where you can actually manage it again. So I'm sure in other jurisdictions there's lots of services out there, like we have our EAPS managers, but I really think it's a great thing for you to consider in your package of self-care. The next most significant sort of pathway for me in terms of my self-care was to identify a mentor. So I always have this recommendation when I talk to my teams about their self-care, in thinking of someone who is several, in our area, grades higher than you, who you can actually go to and get support from. For me, my mentor's name is Barry. I met Barry in 2005, so he's been my mentor for a very long time. He provides me guidance, he provides me support, and he's my sounding board, really. Conversations with Barry are always safe. There's absolute trust in that space, and I know that I'll always get fearless and frank conversations from him. He won't hold back. We will really thrash out ideas, and he will challenge my thinking. We have a bit of a joke, because we have had this mentoring relationship for a very long time, that Barry is my true north. So whenever I feel that I'm getting a bit lost, when I feel that I'm not even being true to myself and my beliefs, when I'm being challenged about different things, when I feel like a situation, I'm not quite sure how to tackle it, and I just need to talk it through with someone where I can bear all of my rawness around my thinking, Barry is the person that I will call or organise a coffee with, and really thrash out those ideas. So in terms of my self-care plan, that's another factor for me that's really important. I think generally for us it's about surrounding ourselves with colleagues who enrich us. Some of the most significant experiences in my career have occurred with my colleagues where a penny has dropped. A situation has become tense in the office, and we sit around and we have a coffee or a meal and perspective returns. It's the black humour that often joins our offices and locations and discussions. It's the camaraderie that we feel with each other. I think that we have a lot of shared experiences, and many of them we can't take home and talk about. We can't talk about at dinner parties. I always avoid when someone asks me what I do to actually give a direct answer, because there are all sorts of people who get interested, and it's not great. So for me, in our workplace, we have this opportunity to actually be surrounded by people who have like minds and like challenges in our careers, but also who are in the best place possible to support us on our journey. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that this role that our colleagues provide, and I think part of that is sharing feedback when you have one of those experiences with your colleagues. I really want to encourage everyone to have a think about what your self-care plan is. Yours does not need to mirror mine, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you all of the options that are available to you. And I really hope that you never have to have a serious incident or an experience like I did to actually force you to actually think about what do I do in this space to move forward. I think that it's really important for us to name how we feel sometimes, and to seek support and help to make sure that we stay that really productive and valued staff member that we are, and that we retain people in our industry. Because I worry sometimes about our retention rates, and I wonder how much that is influenced by the lack of self-care for us in our workplace. And part of that is recognising that in yourself, and when you need to ensure that your plan is actually working and happening, but also as leaders in your teams, recognising, talking, having the courage to share that you have a self-care plan, and that you actually do that as a part of remaining that optimistic and valuable person. I'm just looking at my scribble. So yeah, don't be like me and wait. Take that moment to do that. Really, I think it's important that in our work, and for me, 21 years of absolutely positive experience. I really am, I'm a very optimistic person, as people close to me will know, but I think that's because I've been able to strike a balance in my life between work, between home, and that is about taking care of myself and ensuring that I provide the time to myself to actually acknowledge how I'm feeling and to do something about that. So just as a wrap up for today, after some very heavy conversations, please take a moment to really think about yourself, think about your teams, and make a conscious decision to develop a self-care plan for yourself and encourage those conversations in your locations. Thank you.